We, on the other hand, are going to be picking up in Daniel chapter 2. And so if you guys knew that I was going into Daniel, I'm sure there are some of you that were looking forward to both Daniel chapter 2 and eventually, I think it's Daniel chapter 9 or 10. I can't remember which one it was. But these are two chapters that are extremely popular for very good reason. They involve prophecy, and they involve prophecy that is yet to still be fulfilled, right? There are parts of it that have been fulfilled and other parts that haven't. And so this one is actually, the incredible thing about this one is that so much of it has come true. And remember, Daniel lived 500 BC, okay? This was hundreds of years before a lot of these things end up coming true. This is why it is so incredible and why people look to this particular dream in particular for reflection and meaning and stuff, because they're like, wait, there was so much accuracy to this at this time. So let's break into it, and I'm going to apologize up front because I have to do the whole chapter at once, and so hopefully I don't go too long. So chapter 2, verse 1, in the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His mind was troubled, and he could not sleep. And so the king summoned the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, the astrologers, to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came in and stood before the king, he said to them, I have had a dream that troubles me. I want to know what it means. So the astrologers answered the king, May the king live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will interpret it. And the king replied to the astrologers, This is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me what my dream was and interpret it, I will have to cut you into pieces and your houses turned into piles of rubble. But if you tell me the dream and explain it, you will receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. So tell me the dream and interpret it for me. First point, when you claim great power, don't be surprised when someone finally calls you up to demonstrate. Right? These astrologers, enchanters, magicians, sorcerers, they all laid claim to some great power, some great thing that they were able to do, some wild accomplishment. And so Nebuchadnezzar's holding them to that. All right, you guys can do these amazing things, these otherworldly things, then do the impossible. Tell me what happened in my mind that no one could have perceived, no one could have known, no one on earth has the ability or the knowledge of except for me. Tell me, what was it that I dreamt? And by the way, the Babylonian system is quite famous because you've probably heard of Hammurabi's Code. It's like one of the first code of laws that was ever set up. It was technically the ancient Sumerians, but they were the people that predated the Babylonians, and it's the same kind of culture and group of Akkadian people. And so they drew from that. And one of the things that's known about their code of laws is it was extremely harsh. Extreme. People get upset about some of the penalties we have now, although I say, what penalties? Like, come on, like people get away with everything these days. But back then, it was crazy. Like it was death for the simplest of things. Like it was extremely harsh. And so this idea of him killing them for not being able to tell him an answer, right? He's essentially saying, look, you're frauds, and I'm going to kill you for it. And this was quite common in their code. And so it says, once more they replied, they being, of course, the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers, they said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will interpret it. And the king answered, I am certain you are trying to gain time, because you realize that this is what I firmly decided. If you do not tell me the dream, there is one penalty for you. You have conspired to tell me misleading and wicked things, hoping the situation will change. So then tell me the dream, and I will know that you can interpret it for me. And the astrologers answered the king, there is no one on earth who can do what the king asks. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or sorcerer or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods, and they do not live among humans. This made the king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. So this decree was issued to put the wise men to death, and men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death. And when Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone out to put death to the wise men of Babylon, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. He asked the king's officer, "Why did the king issue such a harsh decree?" And Arioch then explained the matter to Daniel, and at this Daniel went into the king and asked for time that he might interpret the dream for him. See, there was nothing like life or death. There's nothing quite like life or death to really test someone's faith. You want to know whether or not your faith is real or true? Put your life on the line. Right? We saw how quickly the faith of the magicians and sorcerers fell in their source of their power. And yet, for Daniel, he said, okay, just give me a day. I'm going to go to God. I'm going to find out. Nothing tests your faith quite like life or death. And Nebuchadnezzar, and although he's taking some extreme actions here, he is incredibly wise in knowing that he's exactly right when he says they conspired to tell him evil and wicked things. Because guess what? If I tell you my dream, you can very easily conjure up some meaning for it. Doesn't mean it's true or real. But you could very easily say, yes, this is that, and this is that. And I'd be like, oh, none the wiser. Right? You claim to be some wise person. How do I know that you're not telling me the truth? See, Nebuchadnezzar giving him an impossible task is actually an incredibly wise thing to do. Because then he's ruling out all doubt. Right? And many of us have maybe even been in a situation like that with God, where we've asked God, would you do this thing for me? Like, I have this trial in my life. I need you to do this thing for me. And we don't tell anyone else. I know I've had it in my life as well. When I've prayed for things, and it's not about me testing God, it's about me testing the source of revelation that's coming my way. I don't want the evildoer to come in and persuade my life. I want to make sure that when I hear from that person is really sending a message from God. And so that's exactly what Nebuchadnezzar's doing here. He's after the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and he will get it. And Daniel, having his life on the line, he puts it all out. He risks it all, and he says, just give me a moment. I'm going to go figure it out. Verse 17, it says, Then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Remember the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning the mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven and said, Praised be to the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. He changes times and seasons. He deposes kings and raises up others. He gives wisdom to the wise, knowledge to the discerning, reveals the deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors. You have given me wisdom and power. You have made known to me what we asked of you. You have made known to us the dream of the king. Now, question for you. Let's put you in Daniel's shoes. You're about to be executed unless you can go and interpret this thing for the king. Then suddenly God gives it to you. God sends you the dream, and he says, this is what the dream is, and this is what it means. Now, I want to ask you, what is your response? God gives you the vision, and then what do? Go and tell. Tell who? You would go tell the king, right? Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else with that? See, this is why I love this from Daniel, because I think this is such a good reflection. That is such a human response. I'm so afraid of my own life. I'm afraid for my own neck. I'm going to go tell the king the source of my doom and remove that doom from my life. But what is Daniel's reaction? Praise God. His doom is still hanging over him, and he still takes the time to say, God, you are so good. And he sits there and worships him and exalts him and lifts him up and says, God, you are worth every moment that this impending doom hangs over me. God, you are good. I love Daniel for that. Daniel is such a man of faith. And we see how good God is when we have that faith, when we actually put that trust, and we actually allow God to make those changes in our life, to lead us and guide us. He will allow us to accomplish great things. Well, not just us, actually. That's going to be a point we're going to come to right here in verse 24. It says, Then Daniel went to Arioch, remember the commander, whom the king had appointed to execute the wise men of Babylon, and he said to him, Do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king. I will interpret his dream for him, which must have been a real surprise to Arioch. And then Arioch took Daniel at once to the king and said, I have found a man among the exiles of Judah who can tell the king what his dream means. The king asked Daniel, also called Belteshazzar, are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream and interpret it? Daniel replied, no wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he is asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come, and your dream and the visions that pass through your mind as you were lying in bed are these. And he's about to get into the dream. But what does he do? I love this too. Daniel's such a good example of faith and the faith that we ought to have in our lives. He could have just gone and said, I have the interpretation, which would have been true. He does have it. God gave it to him. He's in possession of it. He could have gone and revealed, look what I have. But he doesn't do that. He says, I couldn't do it. It wasn't me. It was the God in heaven, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one true God. He is the one who was able to peer into your mind, Nebuchadnezzar, and he was the one who was able to reveal to me the mysteries of the dream. And let me tell you, Nebuchadnezzar, this is what it was. And so let's start first with the dream itself, and that starts in verse 29. As your majesty was lying there, your mind turned to things to come, and the revealer of mysteries showed you what is going to happen. As for me, this mystery has been revealed to me, not because I have greater wisdom than anyone else alive, but so that your majesty may know the interpretation and that you may understand what went through your mind. Your majesty looked, and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay. And while you were watching, a rock was cut out, but not by human hands. And it struck the statue on the feet of iron and clay and smashed them. And then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all broken into pieces and became like chaff on the threshing floor in summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace. But the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain that filled the whole earth. Now, I've seen a lot of different visual interpretations of this, but one of the things that I kept coming to as I was studying this over and over again is, what was the statue of? What was it of? It was clearly a man, because it had the proportions of a man, but who was it? Because it doesn't say it was you, O King Nebuchadnezzar, right? It's so strange to me. I wonder, what did he see? I really wish, you almost wish you could peer into his mind and see, what did you see? Because obviously whatever he saw, it really troubled him. Maybe he did see himself as the giant golden statue. I don't know. But what we do know is that he had this incredible dream, and then, first off, Daniel gets it right. Right? Let's take a moment to think about that. Right? Daniel got it right. As Daniel's sitting here speaking and repeating back the dream to Nebuchadnezzar, his jaw must have hit the floor. How does this man know? Where does he divine his power? Right? All these others told me it was impossible, and yet with this guy who claims this King of Kings and Lord of Lords, he's able to get it with such precision and such detail. Verse 36. This was the dream, and now we will interpret it to the king. Your majesty, you are King of Kings. The God of heaven has given you dominion and power and might and glory. In your hands he has placed all mankind and the beasts of the field and the birds in the sky. Wherever they live, he has made you ruler over all of them. You are that head of gold. Okay. After you, another kingdom will arise, inferior to yours. That's the silver. Next, a third kingdom, one of bronze, will rule over the whole earth. Finally, there will be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, for iron breaks and smashes everything. And as iron breaks things to pieces, so it will crush and break all others. Just as you saw it, the feet and toes were partly of baked clay and partly of iron. And so this kingdom will be divided. Yet it will have some of the strength of iron in it, even as you saw iron mixed with clay. And as the toes were partly iron and partly clay, so this kingdom shall be partly strong and partly brittle. And just as you saw the iron mixed with baked clay, so some of the So the people will be a mixture and will not remain united any more than iron mixes with clay. So in the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will crush all of those kingdoms and bring them to an end, but it will itself endure forever. This is the meaning of the vision of a rock cut out of a mountain, but not by human hands, and a rock that broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold to pieces. The great God has shown the king what will take place in the future. The dream is true, and the interpretation is trustworthy. He tells the king the meaning. By the way, and this is something I think, especially because we're in a Pentecostal church, that has to be addressed. Because I don't know if any of you have ever been in this situation or ever had someone come and ask you, but they'll say, I've had this dream. What does it mean? And I want to tell you, unless the dream comes with interpretation, it doesn't mean a thing. It's probably your pizza. Okay? But let's face it, when Pharaoh got a vision, right? The only reason it was worth a hill of beans is because the interpretation came via Joseph. The only reason that Nebuchadnezzar's dream means anything is because the God of heaven saw fit that Daniel be able to interpret it. If you have a dream and it troubles you and it bothers you, pray to God in heaven. Ask him to send a revelation. And if he doesn't, just know that it is nothing for you to have in your mind. Just put it out of your mind. It is nothing there to bother you. Right? I'm not saying that God won't send you a vision or won't send you a dream, but I am saying sometimes we obsess about it a little too much. But let's take a look at this particular dream and the amazing facts of history that we know for sure happened. Number one, the kingdom of Babylon was impressive and full of splendor. Right, one of the wonders of the ancient world, the hanging gardens of Babylon, were known for its splendor and beauty. And no matter it seems like no matter where they came from in the world, when they witnessed the hanging gardens, when they saw the glory of Babylon in all of its splendor and beauty, they were captivated by what Babylon had become. It was a marvelous, marvelous kingdom, if, of course, harsh. At the peak where Daniel is right now, it ruled over the entire Middle East, right? From Iraq all the way across to the Mediterranean. It was, for all intents and purposes, the known world to them, right? There was, of course, more people to the west. There was people further to the east. But Babylon was the epicenter and the kingdom of glory. And then after them, what happens? We have King Cyrus come, Cyrus the Great, who is the conqueror of the Persian Empire to the east of the Babylonians, who comes and makes an even bigger kingdom and even greater geographically in size, but it was inferior to its splendor. Now, that being said, right, silver is still impressive. Right, silver is beautiful and wonderful, and the Persian Empire was known for its beauty and its luxuries and its goods and its culture of that time, and it did well. And it reigned for a long time until the third kingdom, the kingdom of bronze. Now, what's amazing about this is that there's no way that you could have ever predicted that the Macedonians of all people, a group of city-states, was going to come together to form the Macedonian Empire, which would eventually forge its way east under Alexander the Great, who would come and conquer that entire region. He would put down all the Persian rebellions. He would conquer as far as India, down into the rim of Africa. And under this kingdom, the kingdom of bronze, it's funny because I heard someone else mention, although the metals become less precious, they do become harder and more utility for war. And then we see that finally in the fourth metal, the iron. The Iron Empire is often is believed to be the Roman Empire, as finally Rome consolidated power. The families of surrounding Rome consolidated power began to conquer all of first Italy and then moved further east, west, north, until they conquered essentially the known world. And as we've talked about, because we just finished the book of Acts, we know that Roman rule was oppressive. It was harsh. It was brutal. And they went in and conquered hard and swift just like iron, just like the vision had predicted. But we're not done yet. Finally, there are the toes. There are the toes. And they are partly iron, strong, resilient, powerful, but also clay. And one of the things that you may or may not know about iron and clay is they will not bind. It is completely divided. It cannot adhere to each other. And because of the mix of it, it makes it weak and brittle. Despite the strength of the iron, the strength cannot make up for the fact that the clay is brittle. And I think it's incredible because we're going to read later on as we read a later revelation from Daniel, and we'll get into that as we explain it more later on. And those of you who were with us as we went through the book of Revelation, as we did that as a Bible study, you'll recognize something. One of the things that it talks about is in the time those kings, verse 44, it says, in the time of those kings, the kings being of those of the toes, the 10 toes of the statue, or maybe the 10 horns of the beast, or maybe the 10 powers that we read about in Revelation. This idea of these 10 individuals is prominent over and over again in any end times revelation. Whenever we have the end times revealed to us, it always comes in this form of 10. Now, I don't want to get into specifics because there's a lot of people who have a lot of different interpretations, some of which maybe are plausible, but others I'm like, well, you got to really jerry-rig the information in order to make it say that. But one of the things that we do know is that what I find interesting is how this points back to Scripture. This is going to point back, this vision, John is reflecting on it in his book of Revelation. Daniel is going to reflect back on this particular statue vision later on when he gets the vision from the angel in heaven. And it's incredible to me how that what ends up setting up all of this, or what ends up destroying all this, what ends up breaking it all apart. And you'll know if you were with us for the book of Revelation, it's the kingdom of heaven. Finally come and set up here on earth. It's not cut by human hands. It's not made by men. It's not made by humans. It's not forged by steel or war or conquest, but it's brought about by the very hand of God. And even though it starts off small and ordinary, right? A rock is not special. Rocks are everywhere. Look outside. There's millions and millions of rocks. It's small and ordinary, and yet this one is incredibly powerful, and it grows and it changes the world forever. I don't know about you, but that sounds to me a whole lot about like what Jesus has done. But that's not where it ends. Verse 46, then King Nebuchadnezzar fell prostrate before Daniel. He paid him honor and ordered that an offering of incense be presented to him. Then the king said to Daniel, surely your God, Yahweh, is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and the revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery. Then the king placed Daniel in a high position and lavished many gifts on him. He made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon, placed him in charge of all the wise men. Moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego administrators over the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself remained at royal court. See, God is established now in Babylon. He is known. He's known to the king as what? The King of Kings. The Lord, the master of all kings. Hallelujah. All because what? He did the impossible. What's incredible about this is we just see it as a dream and a vision and an interpretation, but let's not forget, this was a secret dream, a secret vision. And it was something that Nebuchadnezzar knew would be impossible unless there was a real and true and divine intervention. This is, by all definitions, a miracle of God that occurred. And how amazing is that? Now, why Daniel? Right place at the right time, I suppose. He was the man who was there. He was the man who had God's best interests at heart. He was the man who sought after the Lord. And because of his faithfulness, because of his devotion to the Lord. And remember, it started back in the first chapter when he said, look, I won't even eat the meat of this foreign land because I don't want to eat meat sacrificed to idols. I want to continue to honor my God, love my God, worship at the feet of my God, and I don't want to defile myself before any other God. And so we got to ask ourselves, as we come to the end of this dream, of this vision, of this amazing miracle that happened, that resulted in God being revealed to all of Babylon once again, where do we put our faith? And I know it seems like a simple, maybe even a silly question, but I really think it's the most important question that we can ever ask ourselves. Where do we put our faith? What is important to you? Right, I can tell you what's important. Right, you can go around and ask strangers what they think is important to you, and they're going to answer based on where you spend your time, where you spend your efforts, where you spend your treasure, where you spend your time conversing. Right? Does God ever end up on your lips? Is the Bible a priority in your reading? Do you spend? Is church a priority? I'm going to say, based on the fact that you're being here, that for you guys today, certainly church was a priority. But you know what I'm saying. And I think it's important for us to do that reflection, ask ourselves, be honest with ourselves, because so much of our culture won't ask you to do that. But we do need to evaluate ourselves and ask ourselves, hey, am I, we always do this evaluation where we try and say, am I a good person? And I would say, no, it's not about whether or not you're a good person. It's, do you put your faith in the right things? I can't accomplish it. I can't do it. I can't see into Nebuchadnezzar's head. I can't tell you what kind of dream he has. I can't save myself in this situation. There is nothing I can do but rely on the goodness of God to see me through. Is that where we're at? Is that where you're at?